Yes, welcome to Marvel Movie Talk right here on Geekscape. I am Christian Bladt of the Blattcast, excited for another conversation about Fantastic Four First Steps. If you want to keep the episode straight, I guess we can call this one Fantastic Four Second Steps. So we'll be talking about the movie with people you haven't already heard from. Welcome back to the show, Shalako Gordon. Shalako, thank you so much for being here.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me.
Of course. And the wisecracking blonde, Christina. Christina, thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
So, Shalako, right as we were getting started, you were talking about you literally just saw the movie again last night. Fun fact, I was going to go last night to see it in IMAX for the first time and
Okay.
fell asleep. So I did not go see it at IMAX, but I wanted to. I was I won't even say I was this close. I didn't even get anywhere near the showtime. So as somebody who's seen it two times, unlike me
Yes.
who intended to see it a second time,
Yes.
your thoughts the second time around?
Well, I saw it both times in IMAX,
Oh,
and
good for
I
you.
was just as impressed the second time as I was the first time.
I
And
feel
this
I
time
feel
I
a
wanted
little
to
I
look
feel a
at
little
things.
screen shamed right now because I only saw it on
Me
the
too.
projection.
I mean, these type of films, Superman, Fantastic Four, IMAX
Sure.
is always a good experience. And it was Galactus, and he wasn't a cloud of smoke, so I just need to see him in all his full glory.
Yeah.
But yeah, second time around, I was really just trying to pay attention to what people thought were like the real problems. And I just didn't really get a lot. I enjoyed the story, the performances by the four crew, Vanessa Kirby and Joseph Quinn especially, I thought
Sure.
were really good. It gave me a different understanding of Pedro's Reed Richards, which I thought he did very differently than, let's say, the comic book version of Reed. Um, I don't know. I think they hit it out of the park on this one. I thought it was actually really good, and I mean, there are certain notes that are kind of like, yeah, but there's more nitpicking. I feel like, but I don't want. I'm not going to be one of them people that's like, oh, Marvel's back, whatever. I just think Marvel really took their time with this one. I think they really um, they scored by setting it where it was, like in a
Mhm.
'60s futuristic New York. I thought that was very clever, and I thought that worked pretty well with the story. Um, I would have. I think my only critique, I guess, is that I would have liked to have seen like other villains, the Red Ghost, all of those
Well,
people.
and just
But
to steal the mic from you for a second, they
sure,
shot sequences with John Malkovich as the Red
yeah,
Ghost and
yeah,
cut them out of the movie. I think that the movie flowed very well. I liked
yeah,
the way that we got the recap. They name checked Diablo. They name checked
yeah,
all these great
yeah,
early FF villains. I'm okay with it because I didn't need a 2.5 hour movie, but it's not like,
Mhm.
it's not like I wouldn't have appreciated it.
right,
We'll get into some of that stuff, but Christina,
sure.
I know that you saw it on a regular screen like I did.
I know.
So yeah,
Like the
but
peasants. Yes.
yeah, we don't have the pull to get that. Oh no, I could have last night, but when I saw it, well, Christina knows this. I mentioned I was down at Comic-Con and I was going to be damned if I was going to let some nerd spoil it for me. So I went Thursday night where my hotel was, a little bit more suburban, I guess. I think I was in Mission Valley, and
Oh.
great. But it was great to see it with a packed house. In an earlier conversation, I was talking about how there was this lady next to me, and she was also there by herself, but she was just like blown. You could tell she was a big fan. She was blown away by everything. She,
Uh-huh.
Right.
especially when we get to talking about the post credit, well, the end credit scene. It was, it was like I wonder if this lady needs her inhaler. So it's great. I always like to see it with a full house, but I'm not going to lie. There is something charming about the old Friday 10:30 a.m. screening that isn't full. That can be
Mhm.
fun in its own way.
Yeah.
What did you think, Christina?
You know what? I'm just gonna go out on a limb. I'm gonna say Marvel is back with Thunderbolts, and then with this one, I think they're
Yeah.
going back to where the story is really important. I also think I think what Marvel does really well is like the ensemble cast, like buddy cop feeling stuff. And I think they did a really good job of everybody was important in their own way, and it just kept you involved in all of the like subplots and the B plot lines and everything else that was happening. I really liked it. I brought my husband and my stepson who's 21 and my son who's 13, and we all like got a little misty-eyed at the end, and I was like, oh, that's sort of my ideal movie, is I leave like feeling all the emotions.
Right, exactly. And yeah, I think that you have that in common with my wife. We were up in Lake Tahoe a few weeks ago, and we finally got around to seeing Elio, the Pixar movie that is the much maligned movie. Well, I've cried the entire time. Like, there's so many things, and you know, a lot of it's happy tears, but you know, and there's, you know, look, we're all parents here, and our friend Erik Nagel will be joining us in a moment, also a parent. And I think there are definitely some of those themes that are going to connect to us, especially because it's like, you know, I mean, Sue gives that speech of, well, I'm not going to sacrifice my son for this planet, but I'm not going to sacrifice this planet for my son. And, you know, I think that this is the very strong, empowered Sue Storm that isn't necessarily the Sue Storm that Stanley and Jack Kirby put out there. This is the Sue Storm that's like, hey, you know, I'm in my 30s. I shouldn't be the invisible girl. Can I be the invisible woman now? And it's like, oh, and you know, Reed's like, oh, I hadn't thought of that, but sure, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
I guess so.
You know? Yeah, I mean, look, if that's what you're into, sure.
Up to you.
I mean, yeah. You know,
Right.
You know, I mean, it's not like changing your name from Marvel Girl to Phoenix, you know, but it is still a step up. And you know, Franklin, obviously, the potential. There's so many different things they can do with this character, and we know that he's important, obviously, because Galactus is like, look, I'm gonna not eat your planet if you just let me have your kid.
Give me the baby. Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine being put in that place as a parent, because you like, well, if the planet gets eaten, then we're all gonna die. My kid's gonna die anyway. I wouldn't, but I can understand, like, hang on a second. Let me, you know what, Galactus, can I get 5 on this and figure out, you know, but I don't know. Let me ask you first, Christina. Obviously you were talking about just some of the emotions that went into it. Sue being put in that situation, I thought was wonderful storytelling, and just really was able to showcase her character as a result.
Listen, you know, Christian, that I talk a lot of smack about Marvel's ability to write women, and I was like, finally, it feels good. Like, I felt the same way about Thunderbolts, that I was like, a female character in the Marvel land feels relatively helpless or inept, and so the fact that and it seemed very like motherly instinct, that she was just going to do what she needed to do, and I relate to that for obvious reasons, but I just felt like they wrote her in a like casually powerful way, which I just thought was like about time, because it just felt like they were just having a really hard time writing women effectively. And that was part of, like, you know, the waterworks that I had toward the end too, because that is an impossible position. And honestly, I was sort of annoyed at Reed Richards for even saying that was the like, oh, he's gonna make us give up our son. I was like, you know what, you could have just kept your yapper shut on that one, and that would have like given you time.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing that I thought was interesting is you know, Reed's like talking at that press conference. You didn't have to say that.
Nope. Yeah.
You know?
No,
I know.
Yeah. He didn't have to say it, but he kind of had to say it.
No, but he can't help. He couldn't stop himself.
Yeah,
he couldn't stop himself. Yeah.
By the way, Christina, a moment ago, you said the phrase "casually powerful," and "casually powerful" is the perfect description of our 4th member of our panel, the great Erik Nagel from It's Erik Nagel. Thank you so much for being here today, sir.
I am the thing of this panel.
That's right. And,
dang it, that was my role. Okay.
Well, no, unfortunately by default. And look, Ivan Soto does ask a simple question. It wasn't always Invisible Woman. No, believe it or not, the character was around for a good 22, 23 years, still called Invisible Girl. And at some point, it was while John Byrne was headlining, it was like, you should probably be the Invisible Woman. And everybody's like, Yeah, okay. I mean, whatever. But Eric, we're just sort of talking kind of big picture reactions to the film, and I knew you had seen it. That's why I invited you. But I don't know that much about what you thought of it. So, just sort of overall, what your thoughts were, sir.
Well, let me tell you how this was completely terrible. No, I'm kidding. I
Let's hear it.
it was. I will say this. It's been a while since I really enjoyed a Marvel movie to this extent. Not that it's not completely perfect. There are some issues, but overall, walking out and going, I enjoyed this. I actually didn't really have a problem with this like I did with the fourth Captain America. I also like the Thunderbolts, which everyone says is terrible because it didn't hit this astronomical box office, so it's a failure. But I actually thought the movie was good. Like I
Same.
did enjoy it.
Agreed.
Same with this, but for a different reason. They took a page out of the Wolverine Deadpool playbook where it was kind of self-contained. You know, where Deadpool's point of being in the void allowed it and made sense for multiple characters to show up in and out, and you didn't have to explain everybody and their whole backstories. It made sense. They took a page from that and go, hey, we're self-contained. We're in a different universe. Very minimal about other characters outside of the four, Galactus, Silver Surfer. I mean, the Mole Man shows up just as a small mention to move some pieces around. It's almost like in the monster movies, the humans are only there to move the monsters in play, and then you step back and watch, everything fall apart and the cities blow up. That's all he was there for. The self-containment, the isolation from everything else and where it's going to go to was great to start from that point. I overall, I would give it like, I hate rating scales and stuff, but if you had to, somewhere between 85 to 90.
Yeah,
Percent of how much I actually enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I agree with that assessment. And if we're talking about the Mole Man, shout out to Paul Walter Hauser, who's having a great couple of weeks because he's also in Naked Gun. A few months ago, he was in that Press Your Luck movie. So this is a good time for him. And, his role.
No one's complaining about that. You go into the theater and there's 4 Pedro Pascal movies that everyone's compling about. Yeah. But this guy's all over the place. Everyone, oh, that's cool. We're good.
That is a great point. Yeah. We were talking about, how John Malkovich's Red Ghost got cut out entirely. Paul Walter Hauser clearly had a bigger role at some point, but he was important.
I want to see that scene.
Yeah, me too.
Because they made a mention of him. Which was, by the way, a great way to bring in multiple characters into an introductory property without having to see and show everybody. When they're on the balcony and they see the police drones go through the city and they look at Reed and goes, oh, so you're working with the cops now, whatever. And he's like, hey, they paid me. I did my job, whatever. Yeah. And then he's just pointing out to the different aspects of the city, like they do in Manhattan, where you're like, oh, in Hell's Kitchen, that's, Daredevil's fighting with Kingpin over there. But then you go uptown, there's Luke Cage in Harlem and what have you. He's pointing out, he's like, you got the Wizard over, Red Ghost over here. You got the Wizard over here. Like he's pointing out the sections. So of them. They might be in play. They may not. They may come up as a street level thing somewhere down the line. Right. But you're getting more of the history without it overbearing and too much and going like they really did these characters wrong. The nice mention of Red Ghost in that collective from the balcony. I want to see this scene. I don't think it is terrible. It might have been a thing that they cut it down for time. I don't know, but it could be something they add on when they bring it to Disney Plus. Like there's an extra feature. Here's the Red Ghost scene, or release it on YouTube at some point.
Yeah. I mean, first for me, and I'm sorry, Chris, just to kind of break in on that, it's John Malkovich. Like, how do you cut a John Malkovich scene, which is kind of nuts to me that you actually do that. But when looking at it the second time, I feel as though, even though I really wanted to see it, I felt like the Galactus is such a scale, of course, physically and everything else, and just that type of character. Any other villain you threw in there wouldn't have measured up anyway, So I think that's part of the reason why they were like, all right, we can just focus on this one villain because he's Galactus, that we don't need to kind of throw all of these other guys in there. They could just be mentioned,
Right. And I think that that's a good approach, Shalako. I think that as we are getting, reboots, reimaginings, the trend right now is, the origin. I mean, that really started with Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Now, granted, he shows up in Civil War, so they're not going to, like, there's a guy I know, let me tell you his origin. But I think just, kind of hitting the ground running, the new Superman, it was like, there was a little bit of a recap, but so many of the more recent movies is telling you the same story again and again and again. And I have said this on many shows. I don't ever need to see poor Thomas and Martha Wayne get murdered again. I've seen it so many times from so many different angles, so many different people respond. It's fine. You don't need to show us. We get it. We know what happened. He saw a bat fly through a window, so we put on the suit. Let's see him in the suit. So I do understand. And look, cutting John Malkovich out of a movie must not be that easy. I mean, from a creative standpoint.
I definitely think that's going to show up somewhere. Unlike what Warner Brothers does, where they cut stuff out and just go for whatever reason, and then they never think to save it, or they try to use it as an insurance claim, like, we'll destroy the thing as long as you give us our money back and whatever. Disney will take it out for whatever reason, but it's never fully gone. They've cut cutscenes from other movies that we were not even aware of that showed up later in the down the line. There was cutscenes and other stuff in the time thing with Deadpool, where he's looking at the screens. Some of the stuff was made just for that movie, but other stuff were, from what I was reading, were alternate angles or cutscenes or rehearsals or something that they just used to fill up the screen. They save everything. So at some point down the line, and it's not just like a small character or an unknown or a lesser known actor. Like you said, it's John Malkovich. There's going to be enough of a buzz where they're going to release it as an Easter egg or something down the line.
No, exactly.
Well, and I think the fact that it was John Malkovich would make it distracting. Like, you're like, oh, they'll expose you to that thing, and then you'll never see it again the whole movie, and you'll be like, wait. So it's like, taking it out sort of streamlines.
We saw him for 2 minutes, and then there's an hour 45 left of the movie. I want to see more of John Malkovich.
And that's why I think that the way that they handle Doom is perfect, because this is Galactus's movie. You throw Dr. Doom in the middle of it, and you're like, oh yeah, these are two huge A-level threats. I mean, I think that what they learned best from phase 1 is that Thanos is way in the background. Like, we're gonna get to him. Don't worry. We don't need to rush. We don't need to Justice League this, where we're like gonna just put everything up against the wall. Or to keep it Marvel, it's not the Sony second Amazing Spider-Man where they set up 4 movies that have never been made. So I think it's just like, let's worry about this. I do like the self-contained nature. There were people that I was, that I knew had maybe fallen off a little bit, and I was like, you should check this one out. I think this one's good, and you don't have to have kept up. And I think having it in the 60s, I think goes a long way for it being so isolated. Now, judging from that post-credit scene in Thunderbolts, I assumed Galactus ate this Earth. I was just like, okay, and then they run away because they're like, we're sorry we failed you, but we have a way out of here. So we're there's 5 parachutes. One of them's baby sized, and Herbie doesn't need one. So we're gonna get out of here, but we're sorry that we let him eat the planet. So I was legitimately surprised, And Christina, we're talking about Sue's abilities and her being such a strong character. The fact that Sue literally pushes him into that wormhole, I think is, it's very intentional to be like, let's not forget that she does a lot more than just turn invisible.
Yeah, it's interesting because in our house, we have this argument of every character is like the strongest character. They're like, oh, this, like the Scarlet Witch or whatever, is like, oh, they're so strong, but then you put them against Thanos and suddenly she gets like knocked out in one punch. Like, it's she's so easily disposed of. So then when you see them actually putting their money where their mouth is, it's so like, okay, I knew you were capable of this thing. I get excited to actually see it happen.
What she's talking about, though, and I'm glad you brought that up. That's a wrestling technique where you can be so overpowered. Where, I mean, the classic example was Hulk Hogan, where he would get so hulked up, he never sold. That was the big thing for his character. At the end, he didn't take the finishing moves, he didn't take the punches, whatever. That ending of Endgame, where Captain Marvel should have easily kicked the shit out of Thanos. that was like, well, we have so many people in here. We got to power her down here, but raise her up here. Like, it was not consistent. It was just so that you get to see everybody and what have you. Here, what you're talking about with her and Thanos comes off like a good video game. You see the ultimate boss early in the first level, either to tell the story or set up there, but then you don't see him again till like World 9. You know, you got to go through everything else. So the fact that he was here to set this up, she got him out of there. This is one of the issues I had. I don't think she should have been able to that easily get him out of there, because considering what his entity is, but to put him out of touch, you know, he's up where on the other side of the universe, I think they said.
Yeah,
he'll come back somewhere along the line and be in like an amazing celestial threat to not just them, to the planet, but to who knows what happens with Doomsday and Secret Wars and all that stuff. Yeah. He's got to show up, because he can't go out that easy.
But was it easy though? Right. I mean, she literally died pushing him through a wormhole. And if we really got, if you know, take the comic book. I'm a comic book nerd, by the way, so I have all of these things. I've read all these books and everything, and so I know Sue's abilities and all of these things. Like, she is pretty much the only one on the team that could have done this, obviously, but she is almost Omega level, you know. So if anyone could have at least held him back or pushed him back, she was the one to do it, and it took her to die in order to do it. So I appreciated that, because it wasn't an easy, oh, Wanda can, you know, think about it. When we first saw Wanda, what was she doing? She was reading minds and doing whatever. Now, you know, Wanda's moving whole mountains, you know what I mean? So I appreciated that they didn't nerf her all the way. You know, like Franklin, you know, the term nerf, they're going to have to kind of bring their powers down. Right. Franklin's going to have to get nerfed at some point. You know, we all know that. Yeah. We all know who Franklin is. You know, at this point for Sue, no, she's the strongest Fantastic Four member, and let's show it. You know, and then even in all of her strength, she died pushing this man back 100 feet. You know, so
well, and I think that the element, like, you know, as the only chick on this panel, she did it because she was saving her kid, and there's like that was like she had the power clearly, but she took mom
it strength, mom.
Yeah, like it's like the stories you hear.
Like somebody can pick up a car. If right, we're talking about the same thing. Yeah,
right. And so that was exactly my interpretation. Was like, yeah, she's strong, but knowing what was at stake, it like she could literally take everything out of her body in order to do this. Otherwise, I don't know that she would have had the same motivation. Like, if the circumstances were different, she might not have been able to push him as far.
Right. And to Shalako's point, let's not forget that when we first meet Scarlet Witch, one of the many things that she did is have that terrible accent that magically disappeared. And Erik, a moment ago, you were talking about Fantastic Four and explaining it in a way that included references to both wrestling and video games. So obviously, Erik, you belong on a channel called Geekscape. We appreciate you bringing so much nerdiness into one sentence.
Dude, talking wrestling into everything is not even nerdy anymore. It's everything in life, politics, religion, everything. They all took from wrestling. They figured out the wrestling storytelling. They took the way to cut a promo. You have politicians cutting promos.
I agree with you there.
You have religious figures cutting promo, and you're sitting there and go, everything's wrestling. It's not nerdy anymore.
I definitely don't want to get political, but Triple H.
No, I'm just saying,
no. Triple H was
everything took from
Triple H was literally at the White House. So yes, obviously to your point. But you know, and look, comic books. I mean, you know, I don't want to say anybody's age, but we're all relatively, you know, in the ballpark. You know, obviously Christina nowhere near as old as we are, but us old men over here, none of this stuff was cool.
Christian, I look great.
You do actually. You do. You do.
Really do. Yeah.
You look like you got a skin peel or something. I'm not quite sure.
I have a lot of product. I take care of myself. I drink plenty of water. A lot of these.
But it, you know, it was like none of this stuff was cool. Like, you know, I mean, when I was in middle school, you think I was talking to, you know, you had to be like, oh, you like comic books? All right, let's go over here so we don't get our ass kicked. Yeah. But, you know, you wouldn't advertise. I mean, you know, Shalako, you got that Fantastic Four shirt on. I got a Yancey Street shirt. Didn't have anything like that in high school. No, I was just like, oh yeah, you like Pearl Jam? Yeah, I did too. Yeah, cool.
But even a lot of, to what you're saying, to a degree, a lot of the stuff that was considered nerdy growing up, geeky, whatever, has separated in a way where it's not even that anymore. Like you could take comic book stuff. It's still nerdy, yes, but people are interested in superhero stuff isn't nerdy anymore because they don't even need to have the comic books to understand there's so many animated shows, toys, movies, all that stuff. That's mainstream. That's in our lexicon now. So that's not nerdy anymore. The comic book stuff is still appreciated. And yeah, that is nerdy. But like wrestling's not nerdy anymore. Superhero stuff's not nerdy anymore. Sci-fi isn't even nerdy anymore because Star Wars is so big and all these other sci-fi horror things that are coming out now that do well in the box. So it's everything that we thought was exclusionary to the rest of the world is now been taken from us, from our childhood, and now accepted to a bigger degree in the regular world, and it's not even viewed as that anymore. Like nerdy now is like, wait, how do you know all these recipes? How do you know how to cook this well? Like that's the nerdy stuff now.
No, exactly. So I think that
Can I make a quick point on that?
Go ahead.
That's actually pretty interesting, kind of bringing it back around to Fantastic Four, because in my family, it's really just kind of me and my daughter. We're into all of these things, and I guess nerdy, as you could say, or whatever. But my wife isn't. My son really isn't it. But I enjoy the fact that I could bring my wife to this film, and she understands it. She gets it. You know what I mean? And like they put it in a world where they explained it, but they didn't beat you over the head with it. And it's like, okay, who are the Fantastic Four? Here they are. This is Reed Richards. He's smart. This has been the thing. He's, loyal and he's strong. And, Johnny Storm. And we could talk about Johnny Storm later because I thought he was great here. I thought he was amazing. But I love the fact that Marvel, they really kind of brought it down to everyone. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what I'm afraid of in the nerd world. It's like you said, Christian, like, when we were kids, I'm a wrestling guy, I'm a nerd guy, I'm a Star Wars guy, I was a Star Trek guy. I was all of these things, but it was a little exclusive club. And now it's everywhere. But I feel like we kind of still want to bring it back now. So we're complaining about everything. And that's why I said I don't want to say, oh, Marvel's back. No. Marvel's making films. They're making films, they're making TV shows. Some are going to hit, some aren't going to hit. I don't want us to just critique everything so, just everything so much that we're not appreciating the fact that we're alive to see Galactus on the screen.
We're alive to buy an $80 popcorn bucket of Galactus that is sitting on my desk at work, and the boss is not complaining about it.
Right.
Oh, nice.
Right.
Yeah.
And we would have, if you'd have asked, middle school me this, I'd be like, oh, there's no way this ever going to happen. We're never going to see Galactus. All of these things. So I want us to kind of just, us nerds to just settle down a bit and enjoy what we're getting. You know what I mean? And appreciate what we're getting.
You're 100% right. It is a weird time to not realize, like, oh my God, we're getting all this stuff that we never thought we would get, but also that it's a weird line to walk to between people online that are either, I hate the term, but gatekeeping from what they knew growing up. They think it's theirs, that you're offending us by changing the things that we like. Some of it valid, some of it ridiculous, but then also having other people come and accepting this and enjoying it and go, oh, wow, I never would have known about this or been into this otherwise. You should be that kind of inclusive. It's like, hey, you want to learn more about this? I'll tell you some books to read, or I can show you, point you to some movies so you can figure out more of this stuff and get them on their path. That's what that culture was with us growing up. You saw the t-shirt, you saw somebody with a figure, you saw somebody with a decal on their backpack or something. What is that? It was your responsibility to tell them what show them some things, let them find their own path and figure out the characters and the properties that they enjoy. Now everyone like builds a wall and goes, you're not allowed to touch this. This is my thing. I'm not sharing with you. You don't even need to know about this stuff. It's like, all right, relax a little bit. Some of your criticisms are valid. I don't like some of the changes they made, but overall, they're trying to get more people into this. So you should be kind of happy that more people are getting into the thing that you like.
Right. I mean, we get all this great stuff. Like the fact that I ever even saw Wolverine in a movie, like the idea that I would be so excited for that, and we get it. Again, Christina is the only female here on the panel. I feel like sometimes what can happen is a woman will just say like, "Oh yeah, I really like that," and they'll be like, "Yeah, but did you understand it or
Right.
something?" And
What
I hope
comic
you have
book did it come from? I
you're
don't know.
right, and you're like, well, that's the thing that I know from having talked to you a number of times in the past. You enjoy these movies and these TV shows. You don't have a background in the comic books, and the whole point is you don't need to. I mean,
Right.
the example I always use is, when I guess at one point it was you were allowed to enjoy Harry Potter movies, and my wife used to go see them, and her friends would be like, "Oh, but did you understand this? Because you didn't read the book." She's like, "Well, I didn't read the book, so I don't know what's missing."
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's like,
Just experience that
You
thing
didn't
as
know
that
about
thing, and it's
Dolby and his
okay.
whole oppression of his race and all this. It's like, no, it wasn't in the movie.
Nope, and
I'll
I'm
go
still
back
okay.
and read it now, but
Yeah.
that's not my fault. I didn't read the books and didn't know about this stuff.
Yeah,
Right.
it's interesting because I see the same thing happening right now with Dungeons and Dragons. And because like my husband and I play Dungeons and Dragons together, we have a Dungeons and Dragons podcast. Like it's clearly becoming very mainstream. And he started out just like real hardcore geeking out, doing the Tiz thing where he was like just deeply invested in figuring out how to play and all that cool stuff. And then now it's just everywhere. High school, my kids' middle school has a Dungeons and Dragons group. Like it's just becoming such a mainstream thing. So it's a weird thing to take ownership of, like a pastime or a book you read or something that like somehow it belonged to you. Because even as somebody who's an avid reader, how I interpret the book is always different than how somebody else interprets the book. So it's weird to like possess the interpretation and be like, oh, they didn't do a good job. For example, Twilight, trash series of movies, but the books were really good. And so you never know. And so either you appreciate the output or you don't. But it's really weird when people take ownership of a thing that's not even theirs to own.
Well, and I think that when the Twilight movies came out, the one takeaway we all had was like, that guy's going to be Batman one day. We all knew. Everybody
that was exactly,
knew that.
yeah.
And
It was the sparkles.
Christina, please take a moment to say the name of the Dungeons and Dragons podcast you and your husband knew. You and your husband do this. This is news to me. I didn't even know about this. This is a channel where people will appreciate that.
Yes, we are still in the recording phase, so nothing is out yet. But it's called Heroes and Hexes. And so we are running our current campaign. We're actually wrapping that up. And then we're running a one shot for a friend who just wrote a book. So we're creating a one shot around the world from his book. And that's going to be sort of the go forward as like find a cool piece of lore or whatever, and then build a one shot around it.
Well, I wanted you to promote that now because I'm going to try to remember at the end, but I want to make sure to get the word out there. By the way,
where you have a pen and paper next to you, Christian, you can write.
Well, here's the problem. I don't have a pen, and that is why I'm asking it. We have a celebrity in the chat, the great trucker Andy from the All Apologies podcast.
Hello.
Didn't see it yet, but wanted to say hi. I think, Andy, we've talked Marvel before. In fact, the episode of All Apologies that I was on, we did talk about Marvel. So check out the All Apologies podcast, wherever podcasts are found.
See, I thought he was talking about her podcast. I'm like, she just said it's not out yet. So
I read
that's
it
why
the
you
same
haven't
way.
seen it yet.
Andy hasn't seen that yet either. So I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but Ivan Soto, how was wrestling ever nerdy? There's just a point where it's expected that, you should have outgrown that. I mean, and that's kind of not just for wrestling. That's for a lot of things. I mean, before we started, I was telling Shalako how excited I was that I was at Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con, and I was on a panel celebrating the 40th anniversary of Weird Al Yankovic's Dare to Be Stupid. So if you want to think that there's things that people might be like, you didn't outgrow that? No, there's a lot of stuff I didn't outgrow. And again, about this being, the best timeline, it's okay to not outgrow any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead. I didn't want to
Oh,
step
no, I wasn't really saying anything. I mean, every time I hear Dare to Be Stupid, I think of the Transformer movie.
I do too. Yeah. They're driving across the garbage planet.
By the way, the only good Transformer movie we've ever gotten is that animated one that traumatized me as a 10-year-old watching all of my friends die. Shout out to One Pun. Yeah, spoiler alert. Sorry for a movie from 1986.
I just want to add too, because the thing that I was saying, when was wrestling ever nerdy? Yeah, and to what Christian said, it's like, there was an expectancy of you to outgrow that. cartoons and wrestling have something in common where they didn't start off for kids. Wrestling, you look back at the history of wrestling, was something your grandparents or maybe your parents watched on a Saturday afternoon on their local station because it was all regional. Adults watched that. Kids didn't get into it until the 80s when they started making the toys and the colorful characters and all that stuff. Cartoons didn't start off for kids. They were part of newsreels when you would go to a theater all day and sit there. Like if you look back at the early Disney stuff or the early Warner Brothers cartoons, guns getting chopped by axes, a lot of war references and stuff. That was for people who were sitting at a theater all day, and that was part of your entertainment. Then it became about the kids when there was kids movies. It was on television. So it's weird how all these things, it's like, oh, that's nerdy, that's kid stuff. Look at the history of any of that. It started as an adult concept, found a financial audience with the kids, and then went to the other way where now everybody who grew up with it, now everyone can enjoy it.
Great.
Right. And
you're allowed to like things is what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, no, you're absolutely allowed to like things. And you don't have to know everything about everything. You know, it helps, it's okay.
But you don't have
to.
No.
Yeah, no. I mean, look, there's times I'm very proud when I know everything about everything. It's like, oh, I know who that character is. I'm like, oh, I know who that's going to be, you know, and all that. But no one's impressed with my knowledge because.
But can I say,
go ahead, Shalako,
to that point, though? That's why I was very impressed with Pedro's interpretation of Reed Richards, because I'm not a gatekeeper, and I'm not even the biggest FF fan, but I have a stack of FF books. Reed is he knows it all. Reed knows everything, and Reed's ready to solve it. And whenever there's a problem, Reed hops up and he's like, "I have the answer." And, you guys follow my way, which is why. He's always, butting heads with like T'Challa or Tony Stark or something, other geniuses. And this one, I felt like, and I had a conversation with my daughter about, like, Reed just felt a little bit kind of autistic in a way.
Yeah, a little bit.
There was a little bit about him, and I love that though. I thought that was so good.
Same.
Because it's a part of, like, we don't see Reed stretch a lot. We see everyone else's powers more than we see even Reed use his powers. Like, so this is really his power, but it's also a burden for him, and he explained that to her where he's like, I don't wonder and I don't dream. I think about the problems because I have to solve the problem, and I thought that was a really, really great interpretation of him. And I thought Pedro did such a good job with that. And it felt real and it felt authentic. And to me, as a comic book guy, I wasn't mad at that. I wasn't like, oh no, Reed has to solve it. No, I thought, oh, this is a great interpretation. And I think more people in the audience who aren't FF fans can understand it and relate to it even more. So I just appreciated that. And I think where we are now in the world of comics and Marvel and DC, they're not going anywhere, guys. Like, they're not going anywhere. They're part of the entertainment world. They're part of, of film and television, and they have a lot of stories to tell. And they're not going to always tell them the same way. We're not always going to get, the righteous Magneto. Even though I love Magneto, I'm a huge Magneto fan. But we're not always going to get him. Maybe there's a different interpretation of Magneto that we have to understand. Right now, if you read in the comics. Whereas Xavier was the Martin Luther King, he was the great guy. Now Xavier's a villain. Xavier's a bad guy. And let me see, interpret that on film. Why was Xavier wrong and Magneto is right? You know what I mean? All of those things. Like, I love that we could do that now, and I think the Fantastic Four did a good job of just giving you different interpretations of these characters.
I think it's because they're allowing you to be more open with the fact of that. A villain usually isn't, unless it's a demon or an entity or something like that. A villain has an origin where something happened that made them think a certain way, and they honestly believe they're right, or they're doing the right thing. It may at any expense, but they're doing the right thing. So there is a basis of a villain thinking that their path is right, thinking what they're doing is justified, and what have you. Same thing can happen with a hero where they're doing the same thing and they believe they're right, whatever. But if you're around the old adage, if you're around long enough as the hero, eventually you become the villain. that is, I think, the area they're allowing to explore now, where Charles Xavier was the end all be all, everything for the X-Men during a time when X-Men was supposed to be reflecting, racism and oppression and all those things of where those stories started. Now, not that those things aren't here, but there are other issues that go along with the world besides those. Right. And what was the right way to do things at first is like standing in and watching time go by and never changing. And that's where Xavier is starting to become more of because he's like, I'll control it, I'll fix it. Nobody likes the guy that's gonna fix and do everything all by himself without including everybody else in it. So
well, and I think that was the plot line of Civil War too, where it was like you were like, yeah, Cap, I agree, and then you were like, yeah, Iron Man, I agree, and they were fighting each other, and you were like, wait, no, I see.
Yeah, you had to pick sides.
They flipped sides so easily, and the line is just hedgy depending on. But I, with the Reed Richards interpretation, I loved it, and I didn't read the comic books, so I didn't know. I knew what the other movies had shown, which wasn't great in my opinion. And when I saw Pedro Pascal was cast, I was like, oh, dude, like, why is he in every movie? And I feel like the casting notice was the same time as the Gladiator 2 casting notice. And I was like, come on, dude, like, why is he in everything? It's not going to fit. And I hated him in Gladiator 2. And I saw him in this and I was like, oh no, I felt like he played it just right. And I don't feel like he did know everything. I feel like that he was constantly like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm just running the numbers. I'm trying to figure it out. And the fact that he didn't have the answer was so endearing. And it made me trust him more because he wasn't just like, yeah, this is the answer. He was like, I don't know, man. I've run the numbers 1,000 times. I still don't know.
That's a great observation, because if you know enough about Reed Richards, he was this brainiac, knows how to do it. He doesn't really have a lot of depth to him as a person, other than he's smart, he's always right, and he can stretch. He has the superpowers with it too. The fact that the way they did him in this movie was showing that when people their job is their identity, or their kids are their identity online, and then their kids grow up and move off, or you lose that job, you don't have your identity anymore, and you don't know what to do with yourself. You lash out, or you revert inward, and you don't do anything. He's the smartest guy. He can fix everything. This is something that's beyond him. He doesn't know how to fix it. He can't even attempt to get the ball rolling to how to fix this. He turns into that guy. He's like, I don't know what to do anymore. It's like he's doubting himself. He's looking inward. And he's like, what am I becoming? If I can't do this, who am I? Well, I'm not important anymore. He's unraveling at a time when he should be ramping up. And I think that's an interesting way, because if they keep this going for more movies, it's going to get tiresome quick. Like, this was a growth period for him. He needs to snap out in the next thing and then start joining everybody else and figuring all this shit out and kicking ass.
Yeah, I think that the thing that they were focusing on without focusing on was what happens to people when they have kids, and how it completely changes your sense of security about the world and all the things you thought you knew. And he was so confident. Yeah.
You didn't have fear before. Suddenly now you have a baby, and now everything's terrifying.
Yeah. And there's an entire life that's depending on you. And suddenly you were so sure about things before. And now you're like, would I bet their life on it? I don't know. I don't know if I would.
Right. Because there's go ahead. Sorry, Christina.
No, I just interpreted his messiness more as like, I'm a new parent. I don't know what I'm doing. And she was sort of the same, but in more like, Sue was more steadfast about the like, well, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know what I'm going to do. And he was just more of like, this is all foreign to me, that I no longer have control over my outcomes in the situation that I'm in. And there is now something outside of my body that I'm responsible for. And I just felt like that was part of the chaos.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's the idea. It's like, okay, well, you get married and you're not quite as selfish, but then when you have a kid, you're like, oh, I can't gamble with my life, or in Reed Richards' case, every life on the planet. He still has to consider it. And yes, he is firmly on the spectrum more than any other Reed Richards that we've had before. And just to circle back the idea of Pedro Pascal being cast, there is this quality that's kind of like a few years ago. It felt like every job on television, either Ryan Seacrest or Steve Harvey took those jobs, and there were no jobs for anyone else except for those two. And he's taken roles in a lot of movies, but I'll say he's pretty great at everything.
Really good. So he's really good.
Yeah.
He's really good.
And I really thought that he brought just something different to Reed Richards. And as much as I've liked John Krasinski and other things, he would have felt a lot like Reed we'd had before, And
Right.
I
Exactly.
find this. Shalako, I know you specifically wanted to talk about Johnny Storm, which we talked about in an earlier conversation, but he's very easily overlooked, because of how big, literally in the case of Ben Grimm, how big some of these characters are. So what was it about this movie, this Human Torch, that stood out for you?
They finally accepted and let people know that this kid has a brain. He's an astronaut. He is he's a scientist, basically. He's pretty. Yes, he's the goofy little brother and all of these things, but he also has a brain, and they showed it, and they kept the comic relief in. It was there, the kind of the banter between him and Ben Grimm and the thing and everything, and the little things he would say to Reed, typical brother-in-law things. All of these things, all of these qualities he had, but I felt like this film finally showed like he has a brain. He's smart. He's intelligent. And then if it wasn't for him, the whole thing would have fell apart. And I love the scene where he basically he went to Sue. He told Sue, like, hey, I figured out the language, and everything. And then Sue told him to go to Reed. And he's like, no. He got a lot on his plate. I got it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that's it. I love that part. Like, that's, to me, I thought Joseph Quinn, first of all, he portrayed him very well. And you were worried about, Pedro Pascal. I was worried about Joseph Quinn. I'm like, okay, all right, what are we doing here? But he killed it. He was great. Yeah. He was great.
And the way Chris Evans in particular played Johnny Storm in those two movies is very much the takeaway from if you casually read Fantastic Four, or it's more if you saw them show up in crossovers and maybe you didn't read their books. Like, oh yeah, he's that guy. He's the pretty boy. He's literally the hothead, and he's usually going to fall in love with an alien. He's got a real Captain Kirk quality to him in that way. So I thought that was actually really interesting that he's like, he's doing like the Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He's got like the whole board and he's got all this. He's like, this means something,
theory.
From Close Encounters, he's like trying to get the bottom of it. And I thought that it was a different take on everybody. I don't know. I really appreciated it. I thought that, and by the way, let's talk a little bit about Julia Garner as the Silver Surfer, which was a little bit divisive because it was a female Silver Surfer, despite the fact that we've had female Silver Surfers, and this of course being, she's the love of Norrin Radd, the real Silver Surfer, and there's not by real, I mean the original. And I think a lot of people, we were talking not that long ago, the idea is like when we get Silver Surfer in a way where he's going to be the main character, that's going to be Norrin Radd, and that's probably why they did that. I don't think the movie is any different if it is Norrin Radd there. I feel like the same thing happens. There's anything different. So I just thought it was interesting. Did anyone take anything away, good or bad, about Silver Surfer in this?
I honestly, I didn't think it mattered.
Yeah,
like good or bad. I like she was there to like, she's that little beacon that comes to announce Galactus is coming, and then her little hero attempt at the end, or self-recognition that it's like, I need to do something towards the end. But otherwise, like, there wasn't anything special about her version of the Surfer. It wasn't anything negative about her version of the Surfer. I'm like, she was there, but that was about it. I really had nothing on her. She wasn't that dramatic. She wasn't anything that would have made a difference based on the old comics and stuff where a personality was coming through. It was too early to even know much about it. Even the flashback, which I heard was one of those emergency scenes that they reshot or whatever for her being on the, what was that, quick flashback? It was like 6-8 seconds of her on the ocean and all that happened.
Right.
none of it mattered. So I mean, I can understand people. It's different than what my normal experience was. It's not what I was used to, but also it wasn't detrimental either. I don't think it really mattered.
I do think that there's like one moment that probably told us everything we needed to know about the character, which was when Johnny puts his hand on the surfboard. It's, okay, well, I'm going to have to show you now that I was trying to be nice, but you don't touch my board. Any surfer's going to tell you, hey, don't touch my board. I felt like you were going to say something, Christina.
Yeah, well, I know it's 2025 and people can do whatever they want, but as a love interest character for Johnny, I feel like it was sort of implied that she'd have to be a woman, because otherwise that storyline is totally different.
Yeah, that's true. But then they would have wanted to see something else. By the way, Ivan Soto again in the chat. I do not understand people wanting Johnny to be a womanizer even after establishing he's been a superhero for 4 years. It's a ridiculous complaint. I'm sorry. I mean, look, we can all think of people who, they have one album out and all of a sudden, they throw everything out the window. You get one shot on the Tonight Show back when that was something that mattered. So yeah, being a superhero and being famous in this way, I mean, they're doing this talk show. And fans of Doctor Who would recognize Mark Gatiss there, obviously also from Sherlock, but he was made up so weird. I was like, pretty sure that's him, but he didn't quite look like. But I love there's just this idea that they're celebrities because they're the only superheroes in this world, at least at this point. So I think that's like, well, yeah, that is the way people would react, So I don't know. I kind of like that. And, Johnny's a good looking guy. He's the right age. He's not tied down or anything. And Reed and Sue are already together. And, Ben Grimm is going to basically do circus tricks for a bunch of school kids, So I
think he gave real quick. This is another thing I had a problem with. I think Ben gave in too easy to doing the clobbering time. Like he was really against it. He's like, that's just what the cartoon does. That's not a line that I had. And like Star Trek where Scotty beam me up. He never said that,
right?
But everyone just assumed that he did and became Lord.
Say it.
That wasn't enough of a time to convince him to go fine, and then go into clobbering time. Like he gave up too easily. It was my problem.
Yeah, no,
it should have meant something more when he.
And I do feel like we need to, check some of those '60s boxes. The Stan and Jack Fantastic Four, and earlier we were talking about the X-Men. The Stan and Jack X-Men are very different from even the Roy Thomas and Neil Adams, but especially the Chris Claremont X-Men. This anybody who watched X-Men '97 last year on Disney Plus, the idea that Magneto is right is never more apparent than right there. And look, Charles Xavier can also be right. And that's why look, the parallel's been made so many times, but it's like, it's like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. None of them is wrong about everything. None of them is right about everything either, So that's really kind of what we're all wondering is, what is this going to be like, the MCU X-Men, because we know some of the people who are going to show up in Doomsday from the Fox era at some point, somebody else is going to play these characters. I mean, they even did the reboot and then they still found a way to keep Patrick Stewart and Suri and McKellen. And I
gotta say, based on the recent news about what they were saying about X-Men, I'm glad they're finally starting to realize that this is a franchise within a franchise within a franchise. X-Men, right? It's its own gigantic world. It's like Spider-Man. It's its own franchise within all these characters. The fact that they announced and said we're going with newer, younger actors, good, because that's what they did with Avengers in this whole lead up. Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth were kind of Chris Evans more than Hemsworth, but they weren't really big names or anything. And then they became that as time went on, so they could play that character for as long as they did. Doing this with the X-Men and not getting massive names of actors in their 40s and 50s coming in here, when you're looking to plan this out for another decade and a half. This guy will age out of the role so fast because it takes so long to make these movies and put them out. Going with a younger cast, let them start there and then grow into the people or that we're envisioning for these characters is definitely the right move for it. So,
Right.
for a lot of missteps that they've been doing, that is a smart move.
Just like they did with the sorry, Shalako, just like they did when we got the original X-Men movie, which was literally 25 years ago now. I mean, no one knew who Hugh Jackman was, even the casting director, because that was supposed to be Doug Ray Scott. So then eventually they're like, oh, we got to get somebody else. And obviously, he grows into the role of Wolverine, and he's not really the way you think about Wolverine. I mean, one of the times that I interviewed Chris Claremont, he said in his mind, Wolverine, the perfect actor to have played him would have been Bob Hoskins, who people know from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. He's not built like Wolverine, but he's the right height. So, so we think about these things.
I mean, you could do Daniel Radcliffe as Wolverine. He's about the same look and height for all of that.
I'd be interested in that. What were you going to say, Shalako?
No, I was just thinking, I think Fantastic Four's success is a positive for the precursor for the X-Men world now. I'm not sure, I don't question Feige. I'm not exactly sure what he's going to do, because if you're going to introduce them in the modern, I guess, 616 MCU, you got to establish that there was some type of mutant gene that already happened, and we're starting literally fresh off the bat. Miss Marvel is a mutant. They said, they discovered, okay, Miss Marvel's a mutant. Now we have to discover other little mutants. And then we bring in this guy, Charles Xavier. You can do it that way. Or because even though the now defunct Kang, we have us in the multiverse, you can put him in their own other place, And because this next conflict, this Doomsday conflict, clearly is going to still be a multiversal conflict. By the way, we can get to that. That's where I think the ship is coming to this world, because the whole multiversal conflict. But I think it's clearly going to be a multiversal conflict. You can just establish them now in their own world and then still start from the beginning. And I think because Fantastic Four kind of proved that we can do that, I have high hopes for the reboot of the X-Men. I think it's going to be really, really cool.
Well, this seems like a good time to talk about what's next. And, we do have, we alluded to it earlier, we do have sort of this great end credits. Well, it's a mid-credit scene. The end credit is the
end credit was terrible.
Because I knew there was, that's what I hate, is you can look it up to see when there is something, or our mutual friend David Brody he always lets everybody know whether there's an end credit or not. So I knew it was there. And then it was like, oh, was that? And
they really need to. I'm still for the credit scenes. It's exciting, especially if you know that something's coming. But the very end of the credit scene needs to stop. Because what they do is the movie ends. You have the animated credits, right? Then it goes into the regular traditional credits for technical and all that other stuff. Between the animated credits and the official credits, do a cut scene. Then in the middle of the official credits, do another scene if you want. Skip the 5 minutes of where you're looking at the Korean crew and the Asian crew and the Australian crew and the Canadian crew, all that stuff, to get to the thing where they just showed you a cartoon clip. Spoiler, sorry. But you're just sitting there and you go, I waited all that time for that.
Well, over the weekend, I took my son and daughter and a friend of theirs to see The Bad Guys 2, and I had looked it up, and there's an end credit scene that is just like one line from the movie repeated, and they were all like, that wasn't worth it. I'm like, well, I asked if you wanted to stay. So it's a valuable lesson that I think even the next generation is finding.
They're great. Just shift them up. That's it. Shift them up a step and you're fine. It's perfect. Keep doing it.
So, Christina, obviously, there was a big news a year ago that Robert Downey Jr. would be Dr. Doom, and then we see Doom from behind. And, this is a character who has shown up in previous Fantastic Four movies, so you'd probably have some familiarity. But maybe you didn't gasp like the lady next to me in the theater.
I did, actually.
Okay. We saw him from behind, and earlier I was saying that I was like, well, they didn't even need Robert Downey Jr. on the set. Supposedly that is him from behind.
Okay.
That's what. Yeah, and I'm like, well, I don't know why. It's like
they were shooting something at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I think they were shooting scenes for Doomsday, and then they're like, well, we're going to put that, which I guess that's
why not? You're spending a ton of money on him.
Yeah, he's already there.
Cost a lot for a minute. We just need to do a quick cut scene.
Yeah,
thanks.
It's the same thing with the sequence at the end of Thunderbolts. That's also from during the shooting. But what did you think of it, Christina?
I am sort of obsessed with the idea that they're bringing Robert Downey Jr. back as that character, because I know that it's obviously they're already working through the lore. They know how they're going to integrate it. Like, they knew people weren't going to buy it, so they had to find a, especially after Iron Man has this like amazing death in Endgame, they knew that they had to do something if they were going to make this look legit. And so I'm excited to see what they came up with. I read all the theories and I watch all the TikToks about all the theories about how he's coming back and how it would make sense, but I'm excited to see what they do with it.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. You know, and look, when the news came out, I said, like, I love Robert Downey Jr. There are plenty of great actors that could play Victor Von Doom, but I want to see it. He is great, you know, so it'll be interesting. But what did you think of the way that that's the ultimate in teaser, Shalako?
Yeah. I always go to this in Feige I trust, you know, like I trust Feige, and he's not going to throw something that big out. And the Russos in this case, they're not going to throw something that big out and it's not going to mean anything. I like, me personally, I think that's going to be the start of the Doomsday film. You know, the next that's one that's coming. Like, that scene is kind of like that beginning scene, or is going to play a role in that. I didn't mind it. I thought it was cool. Like I said, we know who Franklin is. We know Franklin's ability. And if you don't know who Franklin is, you saw it basically in that film. I mean, an infant resurrected a woman. So clearly he has insane power. So what would draw Dr. Doom there is this kid. And so I thought that would be a great way to start, because now you can even say, and just my little fan theory mind, maybe Doom is grabbing him to use him as a multiversal traveler, or to get to Loki or whatever at the end of time. All of these things that Doom could use Franklin's powers for, it makes sense that he would go to him and say, okay, I need this kid. So I didn't mind it. I saw, of course, the basically the texture change, so you knew it was the Russos directing the scene. So it was like an add-on to the film itself, which didn't bother me like it bothered a lot of other people. I trust them. At least right now, I trust them. I have no reason not to trust them. So I think they're going to do well by it, and I wasn't mad at it. I love the fact that Robert was there, because Robert is clearly a Marvel fan. Marvel is him, and he wants to be a part of that world and contribute to it. So I was really happy about that as well.
I think those scenes are a nod to the OGs who do read the comic books, who are geeky about the lore, because it reminds me of at the end of Infinity War when I forget his name, Samuel L. Jackson's character,
Nick Fury
Nick Fury reaches out to Captain Marvel, but you just see the icon on whatever his beeper from 1985. I don't know, but you see the icon, and if you didn't know that was the Captain Marvel icon, you wouldn't know. And so they sort of like play. If you didn't know that was Dr. Doom, you wouldn't know. And so they're playing into the people who know and who are like, oh shit, okay, sorry. Like,
yeah,
that's
it would have
Dr.
been
Doom.
terrible if she walked into the living room, saw him touch the kid touching him, and then she goes, Dr. Doom, and then it cuts to black. Like, oh, I'm spoon feeding this.
Yeah. So I think they put that in there for the people who are diehards, who are like, oh, I know who that is, and you can share it or don't, but it's one of those like, oh, if you know, you know.
Right. And I mean, that is the moment, you know, like if I hadn't known, I'm like, wait, who's that? That lady next to me in the theater would have told me that's Victor Von Doom. He's the monarch of Latveria. And she would tell me what their best exports are. And first appearance, Fantastic Four, #5. Yeah, she had told me all that. But I knew all that.
Okay,
so.
okay. Well, yeah, we know it was you, Christian, doing that. This woman in the theater. We know
it was me. So,
Yeah.
Eric, I want to ask you kind of the same thing. So we're getting that, and obviously Doomsday into Secret Wars are kind of the big things. What do you feel about the momentum that is rolling downhill for?
I think this is building. I think this is building up a lot of good momentum from the little bits that we were allowed to see, and especially San Diego Comic-Con last year, which, by the way, no one gave a shit about anything this year because there really wasn't much coming out this year.
There was a Weird Al Yankovic panel that people were
I mean, that was all the rage. That went viral across the world.
There's a lot of talk about it. Everybody was talking about it.
But last year, they revealed Robert Downey Jr., they revealed the Russo brothers is back. They cut to above the from Petco State.
Yeah, they pretended that they still wanted to make a Blade movie last year. I'm
Well, that's
kidding.
true.
I would love to see that movie.
They're
but
still
yeah.
going to pretend to do that. It'll come sometime.
Yeah.
You saw. Oops, sorry. You saw over the convention center over the bay there. You saw the big Galactus drone show and like it went all. There was nothing this year, but from this movie and everything else, there's a lot to go. There's a lot of momentum. There's a lot of I think possible renewed interest, if not faith, that they might course correct Phase 5 into where they're going with Phase 6. I think it's also they're realizing is like, crap, we got to get back to the, if it essentially it wasn't broken, so they fixed it and now it's broken. They're trying to go back and fix what they broke that wasn't broken. And get is like, well, we got Robert Downey Jr. back. We got the Russo's brothers back. We got a 2-parter Avengers movie, which we've never done before. We're going to have all the properties minus, who knows if Spider-Man showing up in this, but all the properties that we all own are finally going to come together in some way, shape, or form. This is the big build up to WrestleMania that everybody's been waiting for, because they just bought ECW and WCW. This is what the invasion angle should have been.
And
we're going to see it now.
And now WWE is going to be on ESPN. So yes, it's
that's a whole other problem.
I know.
That's a whole other thing.
Wait, the Ocho or the Ocho?
You guys seem...
Just the Ocho. Yeah, thank you. It's a great question, Christina. I'm glad you asked.
I had a couple questions for you because you guys all seem to be more knowledgeable about the Fantastic Four stuff than I'll ever be. But one, the fact that we saw Latveria during their UN council, but the representatives were not there.
Correct.
We saw Doom in the cutscene there. Couple of things. One, is that our version of Doom, or is Doom going to be a multiverse thing that comes to our universe? We don't know. Number two, Franklin's there, and we know Franklin. Is Franklin a Celestial or something?
I mean, it's all going to depend on what they decide to do with him.
Okay.
Because that is obviously something they could do. And maybe if people remembered Eternals or even enjoyed it, maybe they would be more inclined to do it. I thought it was fun. I just thought there were way too many characters. You needed to cut that cast list in half. And, again, that's tough too because of some of the actors they put in. But anyway, I mean, I think that we'll have to see what they want to do with Franklin in the MCU.
Okay.
What are your thoughts, Shalako?
Because, hold on, let me finish that thought and then go to him. Because we saw what he did to his mom, right? He brought his mom back to life. He's got stars in his eyes. When that happened, all I kept thinking of was the end of 2001: A Space Odyssey, when Dave goes, "Oh my God, it's full of stars." Like that's what that kid is. He's touching Doom's face. You see the kid in there. So is that going to be why we don't see Doom all messed up? We're going to see Doom as Robert Downey Jr. because the kid touched him.
I think so.
Yeah.
So those were questions I had, and then the final question was, did you notice they reused part of the Daredevil Wolverine set in the movie?
Deadpool Wolverine and it's the same. It's the city block. Yes,
it's the same city block, except the difference was the one end is that Jewish school where Ben lifted up the car to impress the kids, but where he's walking past, the place he got the cookies was the same place at the end where they were eating the whatever the food was that they said the Avengers invented. Shawarma. At the end of the movie, they were eating their stuff.
Yeah,
it's the same block. It's the same setting. They replaced the Layfield store at the end with something else. There's a Stanley. There's a Jack Kirby mention. There's a Stan Lee mention. It's like they just reused the set. I'm like, smart, because they were probably shooting all these different parts at the same time.
Well, what I'll say is the same thing I said earlier. Eric, how many streets in Atlanta do you think look like New York City? There's only a few. So they have to reuse. No, I'm sure it's on the soundstage there. It's
but I just thought it was great that they did very little to cover it up, that it was the same block. So I just found that really interesting.
No, that is. But Shalako, I want to get your thoughts kind of on Franklin, what he could be. I mean, my favorite iteration, the iteration of Franklin Richards is the one that I read the most was when he was sort of like the unofficial fifth member of Power Pack, because that was the team of kids that I loved because I was a kid and he was also a kid. So it's like, yeah, he'll hang out with them. And then they really go next level. Like, oh yeah, but they did the same thing with Jean Grey, where it's like, oh yeah, she has so much power, we need to put some dampers on. But what do you think they're going to do with Franklin? What's your inkling from what we've seen so far? I mean, they've got him reading these textbooks and things.
I mean, you got to remember, he builds universes. He manipulates reality. And just like to Eric's point, he could be a celestial. All of these things, like his power is, there's this great panel where he says, "To me, my Galactus." There's all of these things that he can become. I don't think they're going to go that far, because then that might be too nerdy. But I think they're going to just say that this kid he's the golden child. He can at this point right now, he can do everything. And I think he does fix Doom's face. I think that's the whole reason why he's there. He's touching his face. He does fix his face. But they have to, of course, lead us to that part there. But I think that's more so Doom's test for Franklin. You tell a kid, "Can you do this?" and he does it. You ask a kid, "Well, can you do this?" and he does it. So now once Doom realizes, like, okay, this kid literally can do whatever he wants, I need him. And then now that's where they're going to bring him at, because in the comics, Franklin's a mutant, so he's a mutant with celestial powers now, which makes him even, beyond Omega. It's
our Fantastic Four class of, sorry to interrupt, are they technically mutants after getting that? No, they're not mutants. But Franklin becomes like that first mutant. Like there was a whole big scene this year, not to go too far down with it, where the X-Men create the X-Men create their own island. They're living on their own island, and Charles Xavier shows up at the Fantastic Four doorstep and says, "Hey, Franklin, you need to come live on this island. This is for all mutants." So Franklin's a mutant. He's omnipowerful. During the Heroes Reborn storyline, he basically resurrected all of the heroes who died because of Onslaught. All of these things, like his power is insane. That power won't translate well onto film. So they're going to have to kind of bring him back in a way. Yes, the power of love resurrected his mom. Now he's a reality changer. So if he imagines this guy can have his face back, he can have his face back. That's kind of where it's going to be. What else can he do? That now that Loki is sitting at the end of time or controlling all the timelines, what else can he do? Can he bring Doom to that line? Because remember, they're still supposed to do Battle World, I believe, right?
Well, that's Secret Wars. That'll be after
Secret
Doomsday.
Wars, right. So, or maybe you're using Franklin now to create this world, because he is a world creator. He creates universes. So I think they're going to use Doom's whole role is to take Franklin and use his power to create and make Emperor Doom take over the world, and then all the heroes will battle, and then they'll defeat him in that.
So he's like a living Infinity Stone.
Kind of, yeah.
That's an interesting point. Yeah.
The way that Shalako is referring to he was being used during the Heroes Reborn is that his biggest superpower is to try and resuscitate sagging newsstand sales, and met with mixed results. But
when the sitcom ages out, better bring a cute young kid in there.
Jump the shark or whatever.
Cousin Oliver will be around in 3 movies from now, probably. Or for Married with Children fans,
6.
7. Oh, 6?
Seven.
No,
7.
6 was Blossom. 7 was Married with Children.
Yeah, you're right.
Which probably seems like a good place to start to wind down. Anything that we didn't get to that you wanted to make sure to shout out? I'll ask you first, Christina. I want to make sure we cover all the ground with this movie.
I sort of saw like the autistic Reed Richards trying to build limitations around his kid to protect him, the way that he was trying to like baby proof the world. I sort of saw that was going to be how that was all going to pan out. And I sort of saw the baby as like the baby from The Incredibles, that he just was sort of like haphazardly doing stuff and wreaking havoc. And so they were constantly trying to like keep him in that way. And so I saw Reed as like, oh, this kid's going to hurt himself or he's going to hurt somebody else. And so it's my job to sort of like encase him to make sure he can't do any damage that we don't want him to do.
Yeah, and the Incredibles comparison is something that in my son's birthday party, I was talking to another parent about how they took their kids to see Fantastic Four, and they were like, "Oh, it's like the Incredibles." I was like, "Well, yeah, but something came first, you know, and they're the Incredibles for a reason." And you know, it's really easy when you own everything and you don't have to be worried about you know, getting sued
Copyright
for
rules. Yeah.
when you own Marvel and you also own Fox.
Yeah, you're
And,
allowed to plagiarize yourself.
yeah, and you also own the Jim Henson Company, so
Mm.
your franchise of Toy Story that's an awful lot like a Jim Henson Christmas special called The Christmas Toy. All of a sudden, nobody gets to sue you because you own everything. So, I think that it'll be interesting to kind of see these limitations, because that is what you need to do with these uber powerful characters, because it's cool to see. It's like, all right, but what next, you know?
Right.
So
Well, and all the X-Men have some like relatively simple, like, oh, just put Magneto in a clear plastic box. Oh, just put a metal helmet on and now they can't hurt you. Like, it's just such a like randomly obscure thing that defeats them.
Right, yeah, just keep dunking Wolverine underwater and have him drown every few minutes, and then it'll take him a minute to, you know, come back to life. Exactly. Well, I have very much enjoyed talking about this movie, and you know, there are people judging it based on the box office, which I always think is a terrible indication.
Ridiculous,
now, obviously, people will certainly you know, praise a movie that does really well. It seems like it's doing well. It maybe isn't the $1 billion film just yet that they want it to be. You could say the same thing for the new Superman. I think that, you know, and Feige talks about, in terms of Thunderbolts, they thought they made a good movie. It just didn't connect with audiences the way that they hoped it would.
They made a great movie.
That's all you can worry about. It's like, just tell a good story, and people will find it. And if they don't, just keep telling more great stories. So Erik Nagel, if people want to see you tell great stories, where can they find some of that content?
You could find me wherever Christian's doing a show and they don't have a guest in the last minute. I'll be there to fill in.
Same.
But you can also find my show on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, any of the places that you get podcasts if you don't join us live. It's Erik Nagel is the name of the show. We're live on YouTube and on Twitch, and then it goes out on the radio the following day. So you can watch the show live, come join us, and then it goes out nationwide through iHeart the next day. And clips, videos, all that stuff, all on our YouTube channel at It's Erik Nagel.
And earlier today, I saw that you were on the great Who Are These podcasts while being played clips that I pulled this morning. So I was the Howard Stern clips from this morning. But for specifically for a friend of ours, I feel like we need to shout out on your mic arm there. You have the
the potato.
You have the Cardiff Electric sticker, which
I
didn't realize until literally right now. And you know, check him out. Check out Cardiff Electric if you like Motley Crue and the
making fun of Stuttering John. That's definitely
really, that's
I just want to, before we finish up here, I want to point out that let me get the angle right. Her screen right there. I've thoroughly enjoyed her background. It looks like one of those 3D art images. I've been staring at it, waiting to see a schooner or something pop out of it.
It's the number 11. Actually, this is like a red-green color blindness test. So if you don't see it, you're colorblind.
Well, I'm partially then, because all I see is red and pink.
There you go.
Yeah. Shalako, what would you like people to know about if they want to continue the conversation on Fantastic Four? Maybe they want to know what you thought about Superman.
Sure. Well, if you had my little lower third up there, you can check out my TikToks where I talk about all this stuff. I'm actually working on trying to reach you guys level and build my podcast and my presence there. So, but until then, you go to the TikTok. But I want to say one thing before we leave.
Yeah,
there's a lot of Eternal hate here, and I think we should not hate the Eternals. I thought it was a pretty decent movie. We should thank them because of the fact that the Celestial Arishem, this is who they gave us, because he worked, we got Galactus. We got a real Galactus. We got the size Galactus, and it all worked. and that's all because of the Eternals. So Let's show Eternals a little love.
It was like a dress rehearsal for Galactus. They're like, how did this work? Yeah.
But what happens now if she shot him to the other end of the universe and he's sticking up like ass end out of a planet's ocean there? He's petrified. Now that's another island and stuff like that.
And for our audio audience, I want to make sure they know it's director_SG is where they can find you. And I remembered, Christina, you have the upcoming Dungeons and Dragons podcast, but you also have some other content that people might want to look for.
I do. And you know what? You reminded me, I wanted to pitch. So for the Heroes and Hexes that we're putting out, we're getting some really cool voice actors to come on and do the one shot. We're getting Magneto from X-Men 27 and a couple of the folks from the Justice League cartoon and some of the San Diego local voice actors. So I'm really excited about that. Anywho, you can also find me at Wisecracking Blonde just about anywhere. I do dumb comedy skits. I have a dumb podcast that I do. It's all fun and light.
And in the chat, this is referring to his own background. Ivan Soto says Franklin's biggest weakness will be not knowing Spanish. Now, look, obviously you can see that his father has, a certain ethnic background. But what I'm going to say about Franklin is that he knows Spanish, French, Latin, Greek. He probably knows Klingon at this point. He's going to know he's going to know all the languages, so you don't have to worry about it. He better know Spanish. He's half Hispanic, even if he's super blonde. I mean, look at his mom, it comes from somewhere,
genes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
We're not talking about genes.
No. Yeah, it's like, yeah, no. Because if we start talking about Sydney Sweeney, then we got to talk about Madam Web, and nobody wants that.
No,
one wants that.
Literally nobody.
Oh, you mean the Pepsi movie? Yeah, okay.
It was a really long Pepsi ad. That's very true. My final thought will be: I saw a comment from Frank Conniff, who people know from Mystery Science Theater 3000 as TV's Frank. He mentioned that he saw the new War of the Worlds on Amazon with Ice Cube. And he says, we all owe Madam Web an apology. So I'm really excited. I hear that movie.
That's on my list to watch, actually.
That's on my list, too.
I'm planning on watching it, but mostly because I've heard that it's...
No, you have to watch it. Yeah.
It's terrible. 2024 was an amazing year for bad movies. This year has not been so strong so far. Between Joker 2 and Megalopolis and Madam Web, there were so many terrible movies last year.
Velocipaster.
I don't even know what that is.
I want to see that.
It sounds good. Well, I do want to thank everybody for being here, and thanks to the chat, which was 90% Ivan Soto. So we definitely appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Ivan.
We appreciated having him. Trucker Andy said hello, and if someone who identifies as X-Men superfan Emma Frost says hello, I say hello right back. To the White Queen.
Christian, you didn't plug where you'll be.
I'm glad you asked. Because,
are you a plant in the audience, Eric? What is this?
That was actually my whole shtick for the Weird Al panel.
That's why he was invited.
I was in the audience with a mic and a name tag. So you can find me on my personal podcast, the Blattcast, BLADTCAST, which some of you are watching or listening to right now. And you can also find Who Are These Broadcasters Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the Who Are These Podcasts YouTube channel. It is also available as an audio podcast. Myself and Eric Zane taking a look at some fun clips from all around the world of broadcasting. So you can find that. Eric has been on the show and will be again, I'm sure. So we appreciate all that. And you can find me on social media at ChristianDMZ. And some people will turn up their nose and be like, oh, you're still on Twitter? I was like, well, yeah. When 4,000 people follow me on Blue Sky, maybe I'll start using Blue Sky more. But I think I have like 12. So, follow me there if you want me to stop using Twitter. In any case, that is all the time we have for now. As the great Stan Lee would say, Excelsior!